Okay, now I shift into delta theory, which is the actual reason I said in the beginning of the book. I said, okay, what is the thing I'm supposed to be? What we understand from this difference between the external world and the space and dimension of consciousness. We are simply not our animal body. We are detached from it. We are not our body. We are consciousnesses. Our body does not care about us, and we should not care about our body so much as long as it functions. We should not. It's not a moral. Does not have a moral value. And then it shifts the debate completely. Everything we're talking about the external world. We continue to discuss the external world, and that we understand is wrong. We need a different terminology, and that's why I bring the idea of delta. With the delta being a difference between what we feel our world should be and what our world is. Now, in order to make our consciousness help our body to survive, our body uses a mean trick which is called pain. And causing our consciousness to do its biddings. These are deltas. The body causes our deltas, causes us to feel distance from the state in which we think we should be, and the state we really are. And I take this term because in mathematics the idea of delta is like in limit expressions. But I will not go into the details. The idea is that there's a difference between the limit expression is like an equation, and then there's a value, and the value is deduced from the expression, but it's not there. And it's the same. Our body may give us the sensation of pain, but we do not see it as pain. We see it as what it means to us. Let's say hungry. Our body wants food. We feel pain. Our body does not feel pain. We feel it. That's how it makes us eat. But it doesn't end there. Our body makes us bored, feel bored, which is pain. Whenever it understands we are on idle, and it's time to make the old consciousness be useful to the body again. So let's make it bored. Let's make it feel bored so that it will do something beneficial to us. Now, another thing we have to understand is that our animal body, which is materialistic and not conscious, it doesn't show us reality as it understands it, as it experiences it. We have a collection of instincts, of neurological pathways which filter our reality, which make us be blind to many aspects of our reality, which slice, let's say, space. When we said discussing space, slice space and make us understand the different directions at which we are looking as different dimensions. This is done by what I call the filter of our consciousness. This is what transforms terms of language. This is what transforms sounds into terms of language. I mean, before you learn the instinct, the cognitive instincts which transform sounds into language, sounds are just noise. After that, you don't hear anymore a noise. You hear ideas. This is the filter of our consciousness. That's what it does. And it's biological, neurological, meaning materialistic, but It also uses contingent dimensions, meaning the occupants within our consciousness. Read. I mean, I'm not giving everything here. So there are three. Generally, there are three types of deltas. All of which are basically again, they come from the animal body, so they are all bodily. But there are those which are bodily by nature. I call them bodily deltas, and these are deltas or pains which make us behave in an instinctive manner because from birth. This is in our design, in our gene, in our what defines us as humans, like hunger, like sexuality, like thirst, like these kinds. These are bodily deltas. Then there are logical deltas, and logical deltas, they are the desire. We attain, okay, I was talking about the filter of our consciousness. We attain this filter by learning things, let's say language. What logical deltas make us is make it possible for our brain to construct these instincts by learning repeated patterns. And this will, this desire, these deltas, they cause us to repeat patterns, behavioral patterns. But then there's the third. Also, these repetitions. Once we become used to them, once something does not adhere to what we learned by instinct, we become angry. So there's a connection between logical deltas and anger and boredom. Whatever, I can't read. I don't even remember. It's fucking a lot. That's the completeness. Yeah, that's the third type. This is the type that makes us want to generalize. Make us want to find. Okay, this is like, let's say, like cells try to better their condition by self-organization. Completeness deltas won't cause us to better the way we analyze things, like conceptually, how we divide things, or how we join things, how we merge things, so to better our performance as life forms. But in our mind, what it means is making us find as many aspects of our reality, how they unite, and how we can simplify and optimize our thoughts with respect to the complexity of our reality. This is the completeness deltas. Again, I'm over generalizing, simplifying here. Should read if you find this interesting. This is Delta Theory, the 6th chapter of Delta Theory. Now, there are several problems that may cause, which I call delta bestiality, and it means that we attempt to appease all our souls through one type of deltas, be it bodily deltas. Let's say we eat or have sex all the time so that we won't feel any other feeling, like our desire to to conform. It's a logical deltas, or completeness deltas. They cause us when we think about God, something that is controlling everything, to avert all our completeness deltas are what cause our spiritual inclinations, and we can appease them by appeasing bodily needs, and we can that's bodily bestiality, and there's no problem with it. The only problem is that people who let's say try harder don't appreciate it, and eventually bodily bestiality will we will not exploit our full potential, and eventually we will pay the price for it. It's not that bad, but it's not that great. And I don't need to explain this, but I explained it in the text better. I think it's kind of obvious, although it's not that bad compared to the other type of bestiality. Logical bestiality is again, it transforms our lives, and it makes us want to transform our lives into a simple algorithm where we don't need to think anymore. We don't need to. Everything is mechanical. It leads to obedience. It leads to. It may lead to excessive learning. That's a funny thing. You can find yourself learning many things out of logical bestiality, out of your lack of desire to learn anything. Actually, just memorize details. This is logical bestiality, and not manifestation of being geniuses or anything of the sort. And it causes shame, because you never it simply causes shame, because you in logical bestiality you become aware of what is the potential. You could become aware of what is the potential for humans to be, and when you look at your life, you're a fucking machine. Again, explanations in the book. And there's a completeness bestiality, which is pretty much making everything spiritual. And that's how you solve all your problems. I don't want to fuck. My gods are telling me to fuck. I don't want to conform because my gods are telling me that I shouldn't. Again, I'm oversimplifying, and then it's much more complicated and much more interesting, actually. But tell the truth, I can't remember. I can't remember why I wrote. There are other ways other than bestiality to solve sores, cognitive sores. One is beauty. In this text, in Delta theory, I show that beauty has objective quality. Beauty is not what we think. It's not poetic. It has a neurological. It causes neurological idleness, which causes us a brief sense of relief from pain. Why read? In short, it makes us be able to select any specific detail to understand the whole, and that gives our consciousness a brief sense of relief, of, let's say, idleness. And we can extend it with art. With art, we can take this and apply it to our lives, and make our lives, through beauty, through effects of beauty, make our lives more tolerable without going to bestiality. There's also humor, which is simply, it works. Why not? There's games, playing games, and this is like usually we think about this like it's a childish thing, but it's a good way to deal with your life, just playing games. I mean, you think it's childish, well, fine, but if it's fun and it's harmless, that's the thing. It has to remain harmless. Making games become too important is bad practice. It's simply stupid. Why? I explain why. And more importantly, I say sports. The idea is not make it competitive, not make it or not make it competitive in the sense of not transforming it to a profession. This means that you are not using your ability to play to enjoy, but rather to it becomes as a source of distress instead of a source of pleasure. And if you need any proof, just look at football. Soccer players crying after they miss a goal. I mean, what the fuck? This was supposed to be fun. Look at you. Anyway, whatever. Then there's narcotics. This is very. I agree. What I'm saying here is it's kind of subjective. You can take it. You can leave it. It's not as imperative, let's say, as the beginning of this book. Narcotics, drugs. Well, they can do the job. They can make us feel good, but they can result with logical bestiality or delta bestiality in general with ease, so they are kind of risky. And basically what we need is to understand what we feel, what we feel, what is the cause of our soul. It gives some practices, but more importantly it shows a unification between our knowledge in what is important about delta theory. Is not so much that it's what it says is pretty much common sense, but usually. But what is important, it is backed by the same knowledge that is explaining physics. And this is something that is lacking in this field. And this is actually the real importance of delta theory. It's not so much the ideas it proposes, because they might be incorrect. And I corrected them. I said in the beginning, I corrected this delta theory several times. But what it does, and what it did from the very first version, very first edition, is it unites all the aspects of our reality, something which we lack completely today. Cannot bind any more biology, physics, sociology, art, psychology, etc. You cannot merge them together, and what this text does is it merges them back to one explanatory model, which is even consistent. Maybe I'm wrong. You can prove I'm wrong. Of course, you will prove I'm wrong. Just like I proved I was wrong, but in what way? Even if you will prove I'm wrong, doesn't mean that current paradigms are correct. Okay, so we discussed. I explained delta theory. I missed a lot of things, and it was long. And now, second book, inconsistent. After writing an entire book talking about why our world is consistent, then several years after I understood I was wrong. Not completely wrong. I just understood something. Something which was obvious. Why do dimensions exist? Why does something which is tautological, like persistence of existence, how can it come to exist? Inconsistency must exist. Metaphysical inconsistency must exist. What I didn't understand in delta theory is that the world in itself, you remember I was talking about, it must exist. This is the byproduct of being consistent. It simply does not exist in the sense of persistence of existence, like existing in our reality. It's not in our reality. It's in the world in itself. But it's more than that. When we think about dimensions are recurrences of regularities. What they do is they segregate what I call the logical field, which is just a name I gave to what exists in general, not even in our reality. What exists, as in persists to exist, more or less, maybe even not. If they segment the logical field to what is consistent with them. Let's say what is consistent with motion, things that move. If you don't move, you are not in the dimension of motion. It means the dimensions must segment something away from our reality. And these things must exist, otherwise these dimensions do nothing. Because if they do, if let's say motion existed without a dimension, then the dimension of motion will not exist. No, I'm not saying the dimension itself. The regularity will not be needed because it happens by default, but it does not. So something must exist which is not it. Not the dimensions, not the immanent dimensions, the universal dimensions, and not the dimension of consciousness either. And this is like, the arguments are kind of complex for this. But yes, there are many ways to prove that. One more way to prove it is, let's say, using Gödel's incompleteness theorems, showing that if we are saying that everything is explainable in our reality, then something must be unexplainable. And if it's unexplainable and it's in our reality, then it's inconsistent. Because everything that is consistent has an explanation. You can do that, but I give a better explanation to these. And actually, there are many places. The fact is, once we understand what is the attributes of metaphysical inconsistencies, we understand that they affect us constantly. When we shift between mental worlds, between the external world and a dream, let's say a dream influenced our reality. These are two worlds which are supposed to be completely detached metaphysically, and now we become a channel how they become connected. This is a metaphysical inconsistency. We are the junction of metaphysical inconsistency. Our dimension of consciousness is a junction of metaphysical inconsistencies. And this is it's a different book. It's a complete contrast to what I was discussing in Delta theory, but it does not contradict it. It just says metaphysical inconsistencies do not, or inconsistent elements do not exist in our reality, but they affect it. That's the trick. Now, I also deduced the attributes. I said the attributes of metaphysical inconsistencies. They exist without persisting. That's the first thing. So they simply do not persist to exist ever. So how are we to notice them? Not even for the shortest duration. They affect our reality and they are gone, and we cannot. Doesn't matter how fast we blink, we cannot catch them. Okay? And it really doesn't matter because the duration is infinitely short. They do not adhere to any dimension. They do not. A dimension that determines the regularity of what sustains. That's what the dimension of causality ensures. Inconsistent elements just don't give a damn, and they must exist, but not persist to exist. I know this is very what the fuck? I know, but eventually it makes sense. Inconsistent elements are inconsistent with dimensional space, meaning they can be everywhere at the same time or not be where they should be. They do not understand the speed of causality. The speed of causality is like, huh? Why? Why adhere to causality? Inconsistent elements can cause changes, sync changes between two elements which are light years away, can synchronize between them. These are metaphysical inconsistencies. When it comes to our minds, to our psyche, then they cause things to affect our mental world without justification. This is something we kind of not agree to accept anymore. Once we used to accept, but we no longer accept that there are things which have no justification emerging in our minds, thoughts. We do not accept they exist anymore. We used to, but no longer, because of the science of psychology. We think we can analyze everything, but the truth is, or not the truth is, but what it appears, according to some additional thoughts, is that they are. Anyway, these inconsistent elements, once you understand that they must exist, and I will not give the explanation why, you understand the capabilities, meaning you understand there are gods. They are gods according to our definition of what gods are. They are not gods in the sense of they are gods because I want them. They are gods because they exist, and they're exactly what we think gods are. These are what I call in the second chapter, introducing the real gods. I'm calling them the real gods because this is what when we think about what real God should be, this is exactly it. Well, not exactly. Because they do not, unlike the gods we want to believe in, they simply do not respect any contract that would ensure providence or something like that. But they are gods, they are not a god. We cannot just, our consciousness can only see them partially, only our impression from them, the manner they affect our consciousness can only be partial because the attributes of metaphysical inconsistencies allows them limitless. They are to be limitless, to be omniscient, omnipotent. So we cannot ever comprehend them in their entirety, and every time we will see them, every time they will affect our minds, if we will decide to associate them with a deity, it can always be a different deity. So this is why I call them gods. It doesn't matter if there's only one inconsistent element in the world in itself. Yeah, it really doesn't matter, because to us, to appear as a variety of gods, each saying a different contradictory thing. So it's no wonder we have so many religions, because there is no one God that is true, that is benevolent, this is what inconsistent elements are. Now the thing is, if there were, like, let's say, gods that were, let's say, somewhat less potent, that could do less things than these inconsistent elements are as potent, more potent than them, could undermine them. So what kind of providence could any lesser god give? I mean, simply impossible. And if we think about a god that is like, let's say, makes sure that justice is preserved, but one man's justice is another man's injustice. So what we are actually trying to do is making one man's truth become one man's lie, and one man's lie become one. We're trying to make the world inconsistent. So dimensions could have limited inconsistent elements to make them better gods or something like that, but that's impossible, because what we demand is impossible. So now the thing is, they must exist. That's a problem with them. They must exist. Wait, I'm just checking. Okay. Well, now, there's several things we need to prove that. Okay, so let's say we agree that inconsistent elements both must exist, and are potent as gods. But we want some things for them to be able to do, and we must show they can do them. Otherwise, they are not gods. They are just elements of nature. And one of them is conveying us, doing some kind of magic or whatever. Our most common idea of God is one that convey us with messages, of ideas, morality. But most of all, I give a principle, a benchmark miracle that only real gods can do. Real gods, not in the sense. Prophecies, knowing the future. And why? Inconsistent elements can change contingent dimensions, can change the manner our world persists in the future, in a manner we cannot even determine in the present. So, knowing the future, knowing the present is impossible. So knowing the future, not to mention, if inconsistent elements affect our reality, and again, you need to read. I'm not explaining, I'm not proving here this. You need to read. So don't say, I know it's not convincing. Read chapter 1. Inconsistency must exist. Now, so if inconsistency affects our reality, it means that even if we know, even if we can access the local dimensions that control contingent regularities, control particles, the seemingly chaotic, random behavior of particles, even if we can know that, we could not know the effects of inconsistency on them. So only knowing the future is impossible. Only the real gods can do it. Why can they do it? Exactly because they don't exist in time. They don't persist to exist. They exist without persisting to exist. So what we need is them just to give us this information. Giving us knowledge of the future is the benchmark miracle of real gods. Because everything else could be technology. Let's say what we show someone walking iPhone, and someone in the Dark Ages, he'd think it's magic, but it's not magic. I mean, it's not magic. It's not. It's not magic. And so we need. So only prophecies are real magic, something like that. And so how are they to do something like that? I mean, there are many other things. Yeah, sure, but again, they cannot. Inconsistent elements cannot really exist in the world, in our reality, in the external world, because this is exactly what the dimensions forbid. So they only can affect it. So the manner they can affect it, we can say, okay, this is technology. We can do this with technology. Let's say break the water in two, cross the like in the Bible. Well, we can do that with enough technology and with enough juice. We can do that. Hollywood can do that. Maybe. I mean, we can argue about that, but we cannot argue about prophecies. Prophecies are not predictions. Prophecies are real, if they are real. And how will they convey us with something like this, like a prophecy? I mean, they cannot exist with us. That's another thing. Like if consistent element and inconsistent elements share the same location, the consistent element cannot exist anymore. because it can no longer be consistent. Its reality is no longer consistent. It is not consistent anymore. Anyway, so it cannot exist. And we depend on this consistency to persist, to exist. So we need some kind of messengers. And these are what I call angels. Now, angels are not angels with wings. Angels are I call them, actually, the original meaning of the word malach, angel, in Hebrew, malach, is messenger. And what angels are, they convey ideas, such as prophecies, for example, and by that allow the real gods to be what? Actual gods, in the sense of for us to be they can do much more than that, but they can. This is how they satisfy the ability to appear to us as gods. But again, angels are not gods. Angels are just messengers, and anyone can be an angel. Anyone can be a messenger of the real gods, and it's not something that good, because actually you don't know the implication of the angelic message, and in many cases you could be thinking you're doing the right thing while at the same time you're just bringing inconsistency, causing people to do irrational things which they pay for after. So there are many examples of this, one of which being let's say Adolf Hitler. Let's say maybe he was an angel. These are not the angels you know from your Bible. These angels are simply I use the term because it's most probable that most angels we talk about in mythologies are angels, but the truth is that even the Western monotheist God, which is like a chapter later, appears to be an angel as well. And we can also be angels. And being angels is not something good because, well, this is the next chapter. I will wait with that, okay? Next is I introduce something I call inconsistent paradox principle. This is I'm saying that the real gods are limitless, but there are things that they cannot do. One of them being undoing something which is eternal, like the creation of a dimension. I explain why. The results from the inconsistent paradox principle mean that we can never merge with the real gods, because when we merge, what happens is the inconsistent paradox principle says, like, if let's say an inconsistent element created a dimension to last forever, and we are consist of dimensions. If we are to coexist with metaphysical inconsistency, we would no longer exist. We would nullify, meaning the original element which created us was not an inconsistent, did not create something forever, meaning it, but because only the present exists, that a theory, then it means it never created it at all, meaning it was not an inconsistent element because it didn't do anything. It doesn't do anything, so it doesn't exist. Blah blah blah. It promised several things. The inconsistent element, inconsistent paradox principle. One of them being that the world will never nullify because it's made of dimensions. Another that we are eternal, but not our self-awareness. Our self-awareness is a product of the merger of sensations with the dimension of consciousness, which our animal body does. So without our animal body, we will not be self-aware anymore, but we would exist. Very similar to dreamless sleep. So, is there life after death? well, life exists everywhere, one. B, we are not alive, because we don't exist in the external world, and life exists in the external world. We exist in the yes, forever somehow. You can contemplate it however you want, but these are the arguments, and this is what you can think with. Now, when analyzing the real gods, we go back to physical randomness. The real God can, or inconsistent elements can, determine which contingent dimensions the particle spans, holds. How is the world behaving within the volume of space a particle occupies? The real gods can control it. Because these dimensions are local, there is no dimension will be nullified because if they are affected. It's just moving dimensions into the world in itself, or from the world in itself to the world, or from the world to the world itself, whatever. But what I'm showing there is that I'm giving an explanation about it with respect to our consciousness, showing that the existence of our consciousness, even when considering the fact that metaphysical inconsistency must exist, even if we consider that, then even then our consciousness cannot be the product of an algorithm. It cannot come from a machine. Again, I will not explain this. This is too much into the details. Contingent dimensions exist, and the real gods can affect them. What this means is that they can change the trajectories of particles, the elements of particles, and they can affect our psyche, affect our minds, affect our consciousness, because they can affect contingent dimensions. But more importantly, they can change what we think is the historical evidence. Because metaphysical inconsistency must exist, and because it is really omniscient, omnipotent, the real gods can. Metaphysical inconsistency could have changed what we thought, what we think was the past. They could have changed it, causing us to think wrong ideas, have wrong ideas about what was our past, and they might have done this. This is. I would discuss something else. I discussed something similar in Delta Theory about JDS, that we cannot track evolution. But the thing is, not just that we cannot track evolution. Something can change the evidence we have to reflect something which is not what we thought before. Now, I know this sounds far-fetched. I know, and I'm saying it throughout the text. But maybe I'm simply not taking. Maybe I feel this way because I'm not taking myself seriously enough. Because the implications of this are severe. I mean, we can maybe wake up one day and the whole world will reflect a different history than we thought, and we could have different memories than we thought, and it's completely consistent with a consistent metaphysical theory. I don't know. Do with it whatever you want. This is like. But again, we have to remember the real gods, they may be potent as the gods we want to believe in, but they are not what we want them to be. They are not what, they do not adhere to any regularity. The only thing they actually do want is to express their potential. And well, we have to read this. This is like, I can't summarize it. I don't know what you will find interesting about the real gods. You can also look at them as forces of nature, and that's all. You can do that. I will discuss this possibility. The thing is, even though we have to understand something about metaphysical inconsistencies, just being able to do everything or whatever, and being able, it doesn't mean that, it means, okay, it means that inconsistent elements do not do just one thing. Meaning they do not, that's what I was saying, that let's say if physical randomness was indeed inconsistent, it wouldn't show just one type of distribution. The same applies to our reality. But in an opposite fashion. Because inconsistent elements affect our reality, they don't just show randomness. They have tendencies as well. And it appears our religions reflect them. And this is where I go to the chapter of angels. Because basically, by analyzing our religions, we can see this is true. I mean, okay, we can explain why religions are good for us and whatever, blah blah, but we cannot remove the bullshit, fantastic stories that you can find in the Bible of any religion. And this is strange shit. No matter if it makes sense once you comprehend it and translate it, but this is strange shit. This is not something you see. And if you saw it, it wouldn't adhere to the laws of physics. And as we understood, the gods religions talk about, they are not the real gods. So this is not metaphysical inconsistencies at work. This is something else. These are angels. Angels cause us to inflict ideas which cause to behave irrationally, and this is allowing the real gods to allowing metaphysical inconsistencies to cause changes which are impossible to realize without them. And well, you have to read. Anyway, angels divide into two types. One is the concrete type, and this is the type of we usually refer to. And this is we could be concrete angels. I could be concrete. You could be a concrete angel. I said Adolf Hitler could have been concrete angel, and the truth is, as the Western monotheist, God could have been a concrete angel. Concrete angels are humans, or could have been ancient aliens or whatever, but they are still not the real gods. They are real entities, physical entities, and they are limited as we are limited. And then there are abstract angels. Abstract angels, they are ideas, but they deliver messages. Okay, let me give you an explanation. Okay, I give explanations in the text. Just read. If this is interesting for you, if you want to understand why I'm saying what I'm saying, read. I'm discussing many religions, discussing monotheism, and showing that its use of sensory deprivation puts the monotheist believer, Western monotheist believer, in a state of sensory vacuum, where every slight innuendo that the inconsistent elements cause make us react to them puts our attention on them. And again, what the real gods want is to create all the possibilities there can be, and inconsistent, irrational possibilities are what our consciousness provides them, because of its ability to merge or to inflict changes between worlds, irrelevant worlds. And this is what they do through religions, especially in Western monotheism. Apparently this is why it's so successful. But we can look at it at a different perspective, and explaining that by accepting Western monotheism, we can tolerate the condition the real gods put us in, where we can satisfy our existential distress with the smallest innuendos, like a light in the middle of a dream, or just a sound, timing, occurrences. All that can make us tolerate our reality, and this is what monotheism provides us. So this is why this is like the other side of the coin. Then there's polytheism, which makes us think concepts are not only do they exist. Let's say love, let's say the sea, the sun, wisdom. These are all concepts. These are all generalizations. Polytheism makes us think these generalizations not only exist, but they exist in the external world, and they are as potent as gods, which makes us do some pretty dumb shit, irrational shit, and that's what the real gods want. Or, from our perspective, we could say that they make us celebrate the fact that we are inflicted by that metaphysical inconsistencies affect us. Then we're discussing Hinduism. And Hinduism is kind of similar. It discusses also Western monotheism. Both discuss something very similar to the real gods, with an additional twist of some kind of justice, which the real gods really do not care for. But this is what makes the believers want to believe in them, in these religions. But let's say, so Hinduism is very close in the concept it discusses to the real gods, but something like the merger of the Atman and the Brahman, which is like a merger of consistency, metaphysical consistencies and inconsistencies, consistent elements and inconsistent elements, that's impossible. That would cause both the gods that created us, the real gods that created us, and us to nullify. So this is impossible. So we cannot merge. And the eternal soul, it's already here. I mean, and also like completely, there's nothing. It's very close, and then it completely goes off the mark. And then there's atheism, and after the understanding that metaphysical inconsistency must exist, accepting atheism is kind of like it's arrogance, it's stupidity and arrogance together, because it's simply not true. And thinking you are protected from irrational ideas, religions endorse, but in reality you're just defenseless, because you don't have any. Let's say you're making a yoga session and you don't have anything to argue against what you think your body is telling you, because you don't have a theory anymore. You don't have a story, you don't have a morality, you don't have limitations, so you're just like doing whatever the real gods want, and they really do not care for your well-being. They just want to express themselves. Then you have Zen, and Zen doesn't even usually you can argue against the irrationality of the real gods, but with Zen you can do that because your rational thought is undermined, so you're easy prey. And there's what I call guru type angels, which carry out the angelic messages. In polytheism, there's the polytheist angels, which are usually shamans and usually have no connection with the real gods. They just make people feel the atmosphere of the. And of all the types of angels, Western monotheism is the worst type to be. A Western monotheist angel. Again, you have to. You don't have to. Look at Jesus. Yeah, Jesus is an angel. It's a consistent messenger of the real gods. It's not the real gods. If it would have been the real gods, our world would have nullified. Continues on to secularism, and we have to understand secularism is not atheism. It's simply being in the lowest hierarchy of a religion. Let's say you could say you cannot. There's a very big difference between being secular. Okay, you cannot be a secular. You can't be simply secular. You can be an atheist. You can be a nihilist. But you can secular. You can only be, let's say, secular Christian, secular Jew, secular whatever, secular Muslim, secular. I'm discussing this and showing why it's not really a problem. Never mind that. And then it discusses last type of angelic angels, that last type of angels, which is auto-angels, auto-angelic tendencies, and this is something that is becoming ever more popular today when we believe we are angels. And it's similar to completeness, bestiality, and it's now becoming popular, and it's alarming. But on the other hand, it might be the method by which we realize our potential as, let's say, many things. So this is the review. This chapter a review of religions. Again, if you want to know the details, just read. Okay.